honestly, what the LA Galaxy, and they absolutely crushed the Colorado Rapids right in their first playoff round. But what they did to the Rapids, I thought we were going to do to Atlanta, which didn't
Right.
happen, and I was proven wrong. But that's why, like, I certainly have that feeling of like I feel like there's another level to us, and I'm hoping that obviously now, I mean, now is the time, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Welcome back to the Player Manager Podcast. I'm YouTuber and football manager legend. I didn't even come up with that myself. I'm sure it's been written somewhere. Zealand, and I'm joined once again by my perennial guest, and I guess we'll make him a guest host, maybe like the other host, Julian
Come
Gressel
on,
of Inter Miami. He's, yeah.
hey, how you doing?
Hey, I like your introduction there because you're rocking a little facial hair today, and I don't know if I've ever seen that before. That is,
Yes, it's the 30th episode for us to be doing this together, and the first
was
time I have facial hair. It's a
I
first still.
I didn't know that was like a bullet you had in the chamber. I didn't know that was an option that you could just break out the facial hair. Like I wasn't emotionally prepared for that. How often do you go with this look?
I don't know. I used to have it more. Now I feel like I kind of just forgot to shave or was too lazy to shave a couple days in a row, and then it kind of started growing. I was like, okay, maybe not bad. My wife was
Mm.
like, I kind of like the rough look a little bit. I was like,
I
all right, let's see. Let's ride it out a little bit. And it kind of coincided with the playoffs. I think the last time I shaved was right on the first day of the first playoff game against Atlanta. So I was like,
Oh, come
kind of
on.
makes sense here. And in 2018 in Atlanta, there's some pictures out there with, as playoff beard as I could make it happen. But I let it grow out actually fully that year, and who knows? Maybe it'll bring me some luck again.
I was gonna say we're getting the full Julian Gressel playoff beard experience.
It wasn't
Wow.
very much. There wasn't very much there. It's not gonna get thick and long and all
Mm,
that. It's just kind of, yeah. It's not a great beard that I have going. So, hence why I shave it mostly.
that makes sense. Well, I mean, I shaved this morning, so this just comes in,
Nice.
naturally every day.
Yes. Okay.
But the playoff beard's obviously going on because we have a lot of playoff drama that we are going to talk about today, including a huge match for Inter Miami this weekend and a lot of other playoff drama that has already come to pass, as well as some drama in Europe and Asia, I guess, technically. Depends on where you stand on on Asia Minor on Turkey. But we announce the winner of the giveaway at the end of this podcast, so pay attention. But we're going to get into all of that after some marathon talk because I don't know if we have the ability to insert a round of applause here. I finished a marathon this weekend. Hallelujah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's what I was thinking. Like
Um,
mile 24, I was like, if I stop now, Julian will be very disappointed in me. And so
Me and the
I
millions
better.
of listeners that are right here,
Yes.
or watchers or
Our,
viewers
our,
that
our tens of millions of fans on this podcast, I'm sure, would be very disappointed if I wasn't able to get across that finish line, but I did. I ran the whole thing. I ran it in 5:27. Don't look up what the mile pace is on that. It's very slow. But I,
5:27. Hey, congrats. That's awesome. Just
well,
completing
thank
it
you.
is awesome,
Yeah,
I think. So,
that was.
how did it
Yeah.
feel? How
I
was it? Obviously not during. During, I know
oh,
it's miserable, and like you said, you kind of I think we talked quickly after through like social media a little bit, and you were like, yeah, I kind of
yeah.
forgot my legs on like mile 22nd. I think they just kind of left me. And
Mm,
but how
mm,
did it feel after? I mean, it must be
mm.
amazing, right?
Well, yeah, the sense of achievement's fantastic. You feel very like I think honestly, more people than would like to admit it run marathons because for the next couple months, everybody just looks at you like, "Whoa, wow, he ran a marathon." Like that's just kind of something that comes up. Like, "Oh yeah, you ran the marathon, right?" You're like, "Yeah, I might have." But it actually wasn't as bad as the first time I did it. I got horrible cramps, and it was I felt like I was in the movie 300 for 5 straight hours, right? It was just a war zone, and I'm trying to, for God and country or something, trying to get over the next hill. But this one, I was cruising. I was high fiving people. I was, interacting with the crowd because there are these huge crowds. The New York Marathon is like
Yeah.
a million plus people come out on the street, and they really just treat it like a party, and you're just kind of also there. But it is really cool thing to experience. And eventually, I got introduced into the Thunderdome where the pain gets you eventually. But the first half of the marathon, I actually felt really good. I had a great time.
Nice.
I was looking at the signs and reading them and smiling, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is what runners feel like." After all
Yeah.
that training. Okay.
I mean, that's awesome. What is the strategy with like music? Do you listen to music? Do you not? What like
This is the weirdest. So I had a friend that ran it for the first time, and that was kind of my excuse to give it a second shot. And I am by no means, I can't stress this enough to anybody listening to this, watching this. I'm not a runner. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of me. I'm not built like a runner, right? I am like a Scottish peasant build, right? I don't have the long legs, and whatever. I don't look graceful while I'm running. This is just something that I wanted to do. But I was trying to explain to him because he was asking the same question, like, well, what do you do during the race? I mean, it's very long, right? 4 hours,
yeah.
5 hours. And I listen to podcasts, legitimately
Okay.
listen to news podcasts. But the problem with that is it gets so loud, which doesn't make a lot of sense. You're like, it's a marathon. Like, what do you mean it's going to get so loud? Well, it's like if you've ever watched the Tour de France, when they're
Yeah.
going up the mountain and there's no barricades and the crowd gets like real close. That happens for a lot of the marathon. They,
Okay.
they they have barricades for certain streets that are particularly notable or whatever to keep it wider. But most of the time you're running, people are getting closer and closer, and they've got bells and there's DJs and there's bands, and it is real loud. I have these noise canceling Bose headphones, and I cannot hear a word of the podcast I'm listening to. So at least half the
Wow.
time that you're running, you just pause it. So I would
Okay.
just, if I'm going over a bridge, I'll turn it back on and I'm hearing about, demographic changes in the electorate or something. And then I pause it and we're back in, it's like a band and some dude's dancing on the street and you go, okay. But nobody, yeah, nobody believes me when I tell them, including him. He was like, no, I'm just going to listen to music the whole time. And then of course we get together after. He's like, yeah, I didn't even start my music. I just listened to the crowd the whole time. It just gets real loud.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you had your own noisy experience this weekend that we're going to get to later. Noise can have a
Yeah.
serious effect on
Different.
performance. But the noise
Yeah.
in the marathon that propels you. And I did, no chafing, no like upset
Nice.
stomachs. We got through. We dodged all of the potential like bullets that Michael Scott runs into in his 5K. Right, I didn't carbo load right before, so that was good. Got it done. I did forget to get my medal engraved though, so I guess I have to do it again to get my time
Yeah.
engraved on the medal.
You have to do it again. We're doing it together, remember? We talked
Oh
about that.
yeah, we're starting it together. That's my
Yeah.
part. That's my party line. I will be at the starting line with you, and then I will meet you afterwards after you've been hanging out for a while.
Okay, so question. Any
Right.
marathon in the world that you'd want to run in other than New York? I mean, New
Oh,
York's your home now, right? So that's obviously
it
special in
is.
that sense, but anywhere in the world, you could pick one. Which one?
There are apparently like 6 majors. I don't really know what this is. I actually learned what this is because I was running behind a guy that had some pamphlet like stapled to the back of his shirt that said,
Okay.
"I'm finishing my majors today."
Okay.
Like New York was the last one, and he'd run all the other ones. I think it's Berlin, Boston, Chicago, Tokyo. I
Yeah.
think there's 5, and then they just added a 6th one. So I did a lot of light reading while I was behind that guy. And I think out of those, a Tokyo just sounds really, really neat. 'Cause obviously, you got a couple of U.S. cities. I'm sure they'll all be amazing, but
Yeah.
to run a marathon in Tokyo, I'm sure it'd be hell. I know Japan has a ton of hills, and hills ruin lives and destroy souls, and so that would suck. But I've never been to Japan. I know you have, right, as part of the tour, but
Really quick. Yeah.
no, yeah, you just didn't get. Well, you said you went out one time. I think I remember you went out and
Yeah.
got like a
One
meal or
time.
something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It was Tokyo.
okay, I would love to run the Tokyo Marathon. Maybe at some point in this podcast, I will be legging it up some mountains in Japan, and we'll have that to talk about. And hopefully, it'll be the same report because ran the whole thing, no other issues. Hard to complain. Just the normal and expected amount of misery and pain.
Okay. Well, we got to figure out the time change for that podcast recording when that time comes.
Oh,
But I think
yeah.
for me, it would be Boston.
Really? I think
Just
that's the hardest
because,
one to get into, just to
yeah.
warn you.
Yeah. But just because of kind of, obviously, I came over from Germany to Providence, right? And Boston's kind of my adopted US hometown, if you want to call it. My wife's from there, like
Mhm.
so much connection to that city. And then I feel like the first time I really got connected to that kind of patriotism in a sense was the bombing, right? And kind of how that shaped kind
True.
of the country in that moment, and that's why I think it would be really special to run that one.
Well, hey, that a hell of a lot better reason than wow, I would love to go to Japan someday. That
Yeah.
no, I
Hey,
think
I'll go to Japan too. Don't
no,
get me wrong.
exactly. That's where I was reading the back of that guy's shirt and I'm going, I enjoy setting myself weird life goals. Just
Yeah.
goals that kind of pull you out into doing things. And running a marathon was definitely one of those out there weird life goals. But now knowing that there are these 6 marathons all over the world that are the majors that 20, 30,000 people run every year and they're supposed to be these magic super cool experiences. I got a lot of time hopefully left in my life, but to try and tick all of those off would definitely be like it would be a cool thing, Even
Yeah.
if I lose
Nice.
to you in every one of them, it would be a cool thing.
Yeah, I hate that question when I get it personally. If like after you achieve something big, like win MLS Cup or whatever, like you running a marathon, and then like 2 days or 3 days later, somebody's sitting there and asking you, "Well, what's next?" Or sometimes you get it like immediately post game. Well, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
So I'm not going to ask you. So
no,
don't feel the need
don't worry, my
to
mom
answer.
already did. Yeah, she I
Okay,
finished I
nice.
finished the
Yeah,
marathon and she's like, "So you're going to do it again?" And I'm like, all I'm thinking about is the hamburger I can finally eat. Like I'm not thinking about whether I'm going to go through 8 months of training to be able to do this again. Like, please.
exactly,
I'm going to go to
exactly.
sleep and stretch and use whatever those massage guns to try and get my legs like a little feeling back. But now that we've amply covered my athletic conquests, it's time to get back to Julian's athletic conquests because you had a spicy weekend. We knew it was going to be a spicy weekend, right? You're going to Atlanta. There's going to be 70,000 people there. You won them. You won the first match. This is a place you won MLS Cup in. Whole lot of things flying around, and then you end up playing this just absolutely crazy match.
Again, he wants to go quick. Oh, he ran into Redondo. Play on. Goal's open, and it's in.
Against Atlanta, that is now prompted a game 3 that I'm trying to get all of the people that watch my stream to pay attention to because I think this is going to be one of the matches of the year in MLS, no matter what happens, because there's so much drama and you guys are the best team in the league according to the regular season, and it all comes down to one game, which is so unique to this league. But what was that experience like this past weekend?
Um, there's kind of two sides to it for me, to be honest. One side that was it was nice to see Atlanta, um, and the crowd being so into it, and so like almost like 2018. I think that's kind of the feeling that I had,
Really?
right? Of like how excited they were when that goal happened, and after the game, like you could sense that energy. And we talked about energy, I think last week a lot, right? And about going to that stadium and everything. And but then obviously the side that was trumping it all and was much more in the forefront was a disappointment, simple, of not moving on in 2 games. I think we are the better team and we show it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the better team always wins in the playoffs. Um, and that is, I think, a lesson that we took and that we learned. I think even from game 1, there were warning signs, and now in game 2, that kind of came true, where no game is easy, and Atlanta, they play with a different mindset, a different chip on their shoulders that they don't have any fear. They have nothing to lose in a sense, and that's how they played. And um, yeah, that certainly. I mean, it's upsetting that I think we weren't able to win it in 2 games, but at the same time, we have another shot, and that's at our stadium, and um, we know that I think if we play the way we can and with a little bit more kind of intensity and passion to it, and then I think um, it'll be hard for them to beat us.
What are those warning signs? Because I feel like I love being a part of this podcast sometimes because you watch press conferences and you watch pitch side interviews and you hear players and coaches say things like that.
Yeah,
I get to ask these like follow up questions when we're having
yeah,
these conversations that I love. So you talk about warning signs. Well, what is something that say you win the first match? Obviously, from the outsider's perspective, it wasn't fully smooth sledding. Is it
yeah.
just the fact that it was hard for you guys to get in front of Atlanta United that's a warning sign, or is there something that they're doing, or just the intensity they're playing with that you're like, oh, this isn't going to be easy?
Well, I think from the first game, what I sort of took was more so that we felt really comfortable playing,
Hmm.
and we felt really good playing. I think the first 30 minutes were one of the most dominant minutes I think I've seen us play. But then all of a sudden they score a goal and it's 1-1. In like one moment against us, and those types of warning signs I'm talking about. And then they had a chance, or we had to rely on a really good goal from Jordi Alba to score, the second one, and to go up 2-1. And then, towards the end of the game, I think Atlanta kind of grew again and found ways to hurt us, and had chances to tie the game up. And if that game goes a different way, right? Yeah, you have players like Brad Guzan standing on his head and kind of making saves left and right. And usually Leo, scores a couple of the chances that he has, and the game is easy. But in those moments in the playoffs, when those goals don't happen, or the goalie makes incredible saves, then you give up a couple chances, and then all of a sudden you can get caught. And in the first game we didn't get caught, but there were those signs that they had chance to tie up the game at the very end. I think within the last 5 minutes of the game to make it 2-2, and then all of a sudden you would have been in penalties, and you could have gone a different route. And then who would have thought maybe we would have lost that, in a sense. And um, there in Atlanta, those warning signs kind of were there again, and the guy scores a banger from, just outside the box to make it 2-1.
Will there be another chance? Rios, Muyumba, Moranchuk, Jean De Silva!
If he doesn't score, maybe it's 1-1, and maybe we win in penalties and we go through and everything's smooth sailing. But the warning signs that were there from game one were also there in game two, but there they kind of took advantage of those moments more.
So it's they made it very clear early on that they were going to be opportunistic. Like obviously in the flow of 90 minutes,
Yeah.
it's hard to compete with you guys, and that bears out in terms of the number of points these two teams have gotten. But they were kind of up for it, and obviously the answer to that question could have just been Brad Guzan. Because if you've got a goalkeeper that's making that many saves, he's going to keep the team in it regardless. I mean, does that subconsciously make you try to do more when you see a goalkeeper stoning as many shots as he's done?
I think for me, not so much. I mean, I'm rarely in those positions where I get to shoot like 10 times and the guy makes 9 saves, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I haven't really been in that position kind of
Then
my whole career. So
is it disgust, I guess, when you're like talking about the game going like, hey, the keeper's obviously been really good. We need to try to aim for this particular type of shot or something. Obviously, I don't want you to give away the trade secrets if that is something, but just in terms of
I don't really know, honestly. I think it's more so, um, I think it's more so you got to just kind of trust yourself, right? And
okay.
trust your quality that you have, and not really overthink it. That's how I would approach it, I think. Of like, I don't know, you have strikers that go through lulls all the time, and then they score such a weird goal to like break that, and then all of a sudden it just works again. Like it's like almost like you kind of just gotta let it ride and keep doing what you have been doing, maybe. And I don't know, just kind of wait it out. Maybe the keeper is on a hot streak as well, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Like it's all the other guys. So um I don't know. That's kind of, I guess, my answer.
Yeah, no, hey, I like makes sense. Sometimes it's the whole mantra: you control what you can control, and you
Yeah.
can't control how well Brad Guzan's playing or not. Because Brad Guzan did have what is technically classified as a mistake, I think, in the opening goal for you guys. And we were talking about this kind of off recording already, so I'm going to open the floor up for you because you said this was a very like a genius play here. And if you are watching this instead of just listening to it, you'll see the play. If not, I'll briefly describe it. Brad Guzan's going out to punt the ball, and the Inter Miami guy just kind of drifts into his area and throws him off, and the ball just falls, and Guzan looks all confused, and Inter Miami gets a goal. Julian, why is this a genius play?
Well, because in my opinion, Redondo doesn't actually one interfere, one like lunge in, or try and get the ball out of his hand. I think all he does is just jog a little bit faster at the right time. And that is something, like, he doesn't like do like a little stutter towards him, like a little fake as if he were to get the ball or not. He doesn't bump him. Obviously he doesn't try and reach for the ball. He's like like I said, he's just jogging a little bit faster and throws Brad off enough to just like make him not kick the ball, I guess. And that's kind of all that he'd want in that sense. And what an, like, for me, even the referee, incredible for him to kind of, I mean, he had a perfect view. He was standing right there, but to kind of not call it right away, I think is pretty one gutsy. But I think I do you know the rule on this? I don't know the official rule on this, but I think it's not a foul or interference or anything because he doesn't lunge or he could have kicked the ball and everything would have been fine, right?
I think the way this works, right, and the way that a lot of a lot of being a ref in soccer works is, does he actively go out of his way to like impede the
Yeah,
goalkeeper in this situation? I think it's one of those plays where like your guy here is coming in. He's doing this. This is the sort of thing that the 50-year-old dude at the Y does when you're
yeah,
playing pickup basketball, right? And they like put the ball between their knees and he goes one way and then grabs it and goes the other. That's what this feels like to me, where even though he's playing it off nonchalantly, like you're talking about, he is just
yeah.
jogging up the field. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Right, 100%. And
I totally agree. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think that what Brad Guzan doesn't do well in this situation, because people were saying, well, what's Guzan supposed to do here? Is he supposed to kick all the way through him and like injure himself to draw the foul? No, but he has to touch him, right? Brad
Yeah.
Guzan has to show that he is being obstructed. And what Brad
Yeah.
Guzan, and this is somebody that played in the Premier League for a long time, tons of US caps. He obviously knows a lot more than me. He would probably sit here and say the same thing if he could. He doesn't touch him. He recognizes that he's there and just kind of falls over, and he flops a little bit too much. And there's a point where you can flop a little bit too much and you don't get the call that you should get because you over flopped it. I think that's what happens to Guzan, because you
Yeah.
can't obstruct the punt. Like everybody knows that if the goalkeeper's coming in to punt it, it'd just be a dangerous play if you had all these players flying in to try and get to the ball when it's leaving
Yeah.
the hand before it hits the foot. Like it'd just be a psycho play every time. So it has to be a foul, but Guzan, like Brad Guzan, just does not sell it well enough. And what ends up happening is he just kind of drops the ball. Like it should, if he'd whistled it, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But I think there was a way that Guzan could have done it where he definitely would have gotten the call.
Yeah.
And in this
I see
instance,
that.
he left it open to where the referee could go, hey, that was clever. And then just kind of give the play. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's a goal.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's a clever play from Redondo, and I guess he got the better of Brad in that moment.
He did. Well, here's the thing. The summation of that is I don't blame him for trying it. The worst case scenario is it's just a foul. Like if you get a really angry red card and if Guzan really kicks you hard and sells the hell out of it, maybe you get a yellow card. But
Yeah.
the upside is you literally got a goal out of it just
I know.
for free. So
Yeah.
most valuable thing in
Absolutely.
the sport. It was a genius play. Is that something everybody's patting him on the back for that? Messi comes over to him and is like, "Hey, dude, that was pretty cool."
I said like pretty cool, but the mood wasn't very great after the game to really talk about that goal
True.
because
Okay.
ultimately it didn't really matter. So yeah, because we lost, so it wasn't ideal in that sense to kind of talk about just that goal, you know?
Then, even though the cool goal happened, I knew we were gonna have to talk about the cool goal. You've got this match coming up this weekend that we were already talking about, but I want to hit it from this kind of different angle because I'm fascinated with the mindset here, because obviously this season has been, we have a team good enough to win a MLS Cup. We've been talking about it all year, right? We have a team that's good enough to do this. We have a team that's good enough to do this. Well, now it's down to that one game. Is there anything different in your mental approach to a game like that where you go, do you even acknowledge the fact that the season could end after this game if, one bounce of the ball doesn't go the right way?
I think you have to. I think you have to
Okay.
acknowledge the fact that
Interesting.
it's a completely different game, and that you see it, all around the league, that things can go certain ways that you don't foresee or you don't want to happen, and all of a sudden next week could be off, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think if you don't do that, you miss the magnitude of the moment in a way. right? These are knockout games. Like this is do or die. Like this is it, and there's no redos, there's no do-overs, there's no making up for a mistake afterwards. This is what you're going to live with until next year, until you can redeem yourself again. So um, it's certainly, I think, certainly you have to be aware of the occasion and the type of game that it's going to be. Where, like I said, I think they will be playing without any fear. Nobody expects them to go through. It will be a huge, huge upset, I think, if they do, right? And that's the reality of it. And that's not me saying how much better we are. I think that's just the reality
That's the
of
Vegas
things.
betting line. Yeah, that's
Yes,
just what it
yes,
is. Yeah.
exactly. And this is from here on out, these are one-off matches, and this is what we wanted to be in. Not necessarily in the first round right away, but it was going to come anyway. So um, let's hopefully take advantage of this extra experience now to kind of go through, play at home, obviously, which is a big one for us. But I think you certainly have to be aware of kind of the moment, and the mindset needs to be the right one to extend your season, because that's what it's all about now, about extending your season.
Would you prefer playing in these types of games? Obviously, you'd rather have won in Atlanta, but if you're looking at the calendar and all the matches you played this season, is this like your favorite one, or is it just happy to get it over with?
No, it's absolutely my favorite time of year, and that's why it hurts a little bit extra when you don't play, like the last two games for me. You kind of work all year to be in the playoffs. That's what your body of work does. It's not to win the Supporters Shield. That's not an officially recognized trophy in MLS's eyes, for example. Like it's a within the US and US soccer, I think the continental trophy that you want to win the most is MLS Cup, and that's what you work day in and day out for. And that's why, yeah, when these games come, you want to be part of it and you want to play. And I'm excited to embrace these matches and to embrace that energy of that little extra nerviness and that little, like they had it, they had it, and Atlanta had it in their last game. If they lost, they would have been out. Their season would have been done, and you could feel that. There's a different, you know, emotion and character and feeling behind it when that happens. So I'm excited, and I hope I get to be part of it.
There's desperation. I think that's is the
Yeah,
word. There's a different desperation. Do,
yeah,
do you hear? I mean, you were somebody that over the course of most of this season was the person that had the most appearances for Inter Miami. Does Tata come to you? Like, obviously, it might just be a matchup thing against Atlanta United or whatever. But does he come to you and go, like, do you have conversations? This is just a window into being a professional athlete. Do you have
yeah.
conversations about, like, yo, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get you in this time? Or is it just an understanding that this is just the way it works?
There's an understanding that it's soccer and it's football, and that stuff happens. Different things happen in different, circumstances of the game. But there was still a conversation. I still had a conversation, I think this week after the game, a couple days ago, about him or with him about, yeah, kind of um, what is what's happening at the moment, and
Yeah.
it gave me, honestly, it gave me a little bit of reassurance, not reassurance, I don't know what the right word is, but it gave me a good amount
Like
of like
clarity.
clarity. Well, not so much clarity,
I was
because
trying to be the thesaurus here.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's fine, because in my mind, I'd still prefer myself being out there.
Yeah, true.
Like I want to play and everything. So it's more so, I have a more positive feeling towards the future. This like you sit with it, you kind of like this like inner feeling of just like this irritation, kind of, you're not playing, what is happening, why, like,
Cautious optimism.
yeah,
How am I
cautious
doing?
optimism, and just, yeah, probably clarity, actually, or just like a feeling of, all right, at least you made your voice heard a little bit, and you
Okay.
kind of got a little bit of feedback, of kind of why things are happening at the moment. So it's something that was good for me to be able to, have a good mindset going forward, and approach these games better. I think now than
Well,
if I hadn't talked to him. Yeah.
right. Well, hey, the communication is key to
Oh,
all good.
just talk. It's so simple. It's so simple, but it makes life and everything so much easier in every aspect of life, not just your job or not just soccer, but everything.
The wisdom. of Julian Gressel. I'll share. I'll bounce some wisdom back to you that made me think of. Somebody put into Chat GPT to compare me to a famous person from history, and the answer that apparently you can do this. I did not know you could do this. We did Pokemon, we did fruit, we did natural disaster. We did somebody just kept putting them in, and it was like, what is Zealand as a natural disaster? I got Glacier, by the way, because I'm so methodical, apparently, with my tactical approach in Football Manager. That was what ChatGPT responded with. But the famous person it gave me was Sun Tzu. And so when you were talking about Atlanta, this is just for anybody listening that would find this interesting. Yeah, I know you'll find this interesting. One of the key tenets of Sun Tzu's Art of War is if you really want your army to fight as hard as possible, you can't give them the option of retreat. And now this weekend, Inter Miami does not have the option of retreat. So for the first time, you're going to get Inter Miami at its best because there's no option of retreat.
That's how I felt going into the first game. A little bit of like, I wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't seen us at our very, very best. Like it could, like honestly, what the LA Galaxy, and they absolutely crushed the Colorado Rapids right in their first playoff round. But what they did to the Rapids, I thought we were going to do to Atlanta, which didn't happen, and I was proven wrong. But that's why, like, I certainly have that feeling of like, I feel like there's another level to us. And I'm hoping that obviously now is the time, right? So we'll see.
That's interesting that there's you're involved in the team, in training, in the talks, in the games. You feel like there's one more gear that hasn't clicked for the team.
Well, yeah, because we never had that desperation mode that like, this is do or die. Like this is where we're gonna have to. Like, yes, we had it earlier in the year and maybe CONCACAF and all those types of games, maybe Leagues Cup a little bit, but at the same time, now I think we're the fittest we've been, we're the healthiest we've been, and we're kind of like I said, this is what you work for all year long. It's always been our goal to win MLS Cup. That was always the number one thing, and this is now the time to do it.
Well, I mean, Sun Tzu stays undefeated. It's right. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's perfect. And if you're wondering what type of fruit I was, by the way, ChatGPT gave me a kiwi, which is the national fruit of New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it kind of copped out on that answer, but fair enough. Yeah. No, thank you, ChatGPT. You mentioned the drama in the rest of the MLS playoffs. We would be remiss if we didn't go through some of the crazy stuff that happened. Obviously, Galaxy blew out Colorado, but the one that jumps off the page instantly is the nemesis of Inter Miami in so many ways is already out. So we're talking about the fact that you guys are in just an absolute battle with Atlanta. I think it's playoffs are going to be the playoffs, and every team that's here is a decent team at least. I mean, like Columbus is already out, and this is the team you won MLS Cup with last year. What happened? I mean, they lost a penalty shootout in their second game up here in New York against Red Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, the MLS Cup playoffs happened, and it's such a stupid answer, but that's how the playoffs are, and that's what makes MLS and this format so special. That favorites can get bounced, and that happens every year. I feel like, and that's something I think very unique and very cool about this format and about this country and this league. And I mean, I was watching the games a little bit. We had our daughter's 4th birthday party on Sunday right during it, so I wasn't really paying that much attention. Yeah, Cinderella was present, so I had to be on my best behavior.
Well, yeah, you had, come on, you don't want to. It's Cinderella.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, no, it was. I mean, I think losing obviously at home was the bigger upset than I think this game, going to penalties and then losing on penalties. Anything can happen on penalties. I think everybody knows that in the world. And yeah, they've had a long season, Columbus, and they've been in, the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. They won the Leagues Cup, obviously. had a long year with Campeones Cup and another friendlies and that type of stuff. So it starts to show maybe a little bit in November, and maybe that happened. And then again, a team like in the Red Bulls that has absolutely nothing to lose and just plays against in my opinion, clearly superior team in the Columbus Crew that um, you know, they maybe match up quite well against them a little bit, and all of a sudden, score a couple goals and you feel yourself, and then bam, you win on penalties and you go to the next round, and the defending champs are out.
Does that send like a jolt through you guys, or I would assume any other favorite going into the playoffs, where it felt like it happened almost before the playoffs even started? That it was like, oh, Columbus is just. I mean, we
Yeah,
had Kevin Egan on the podcast, and we're going, let's map out who's going to make it where, and it
yeah,
was LA, Inter Miami, Columbus. Like those are the four teams that have a good odds to be able to go on and win the whole thing. And now one of those four pillars is just removed from the playoffs before they even start. You look at that and go, "Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, we've started now."
absolutely, absolutely. I think it's an eye opener for, yeah, a lot of people, but also for us. But I also think that obviously our own experiences are more eye opening than anything else, and the game against Atlanta, should really be the one. The last game against Atlanta should really be the one that really drives us to take this serious, and really be like, hey, this we could be done here. So um I think we've talked about this quite a bit, where I think I'm the only guy that really has MLS playoff and kind of extensive MLS experience on our team. So I try to
Hmm.
tell guys before that anything can happen, and these games are about not necessarily who plays better, but just kind of who grinds its way through the games, and the results. And um, here we are now, do or die.
What do you mean you tried to like tell them? Was it a team meeting where the Julian Gressel
No, there's
stands up
not.
and goes,
And this is me saying this stuff, but like it's me more so talking to younger guys, right? And mostly English speakers, because that's just easier conversations to have. They come up to me like, I mean, you have guys in the lineup for us like Noah Allen, Yannick Bright. These guys have played, obviously Drake Calendar. They know MLS, but they don't know it at this type of stage, right? And it's a bit different, and I try to just voice that and try to make that known of kind of my feelings of things. And that's also what I said after the game in Atlanta, actually, where I think I mentioned this in the past, where we always have, or I feel like every time we have a longer playoff run, this happened last year as well, in Columbus, we have a moment of difficulty that happens, that you
what
get
was the
all.
moment? What was the moment of difficulty last year?
It was exactly the same position I'm in now. We played Atlanta in the first round, we won the first game, and then went to Atlanta and lost.
That's
And
eer that
then
that's honestly eerie that you're, like, deja vuing
yeah,
this right now.
it's I know it could be like now, it could be, I think I've said this, some other people, even on the podcast, it could be Atlanta, Orlando, Cincinnati, LAFC in the final again, which is exactly the same as last year for me. So it
I
could it
think
could be really, really funny. A
we
redo
might
of
have
last
said
year.
that when Kevin was here, but that's just I mean, did you
Yeah.
just have some weird moment of serendipity when you saw the draw and you're like, "Oh, boy, okay."
And
You
now
should you
Columbus is out too, so like that path kind of got a little more likely. Just interesting. But again, back to the point of like kind of having this one moment where you go through difficulty. And in 2018, for example, it was we lost the last two regular season games of the year,
Right.
and that was kind of like, man, what is happening here? Last year it was that loss in Atlanta, I think, where we were so sure of being one of the best teams, and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, hold on a second. Now this year again, same thing, where like I'm hoping it gives us, this type of reaction and this type of pause again of like, whoa, like we have to be at our very best in order to win this thing. And that brings out that maybe extra 5%, that extra 10% that um guys can dig to and go to, hopefully in tougher times during games, or yeah, whatever it is.
So if I had to ask for your number one key for getting through the MLS playoffs, just to ask you the hardest hitting
Oh,
question, what
yeah.
do you what do you
This
what
has
do you
not
think?
been an easy episode for me, and you
I feel
throwing
like
that one at me now.
I'm like turning the spotlight on you in the like the interrogation room or something. Like, what's
Yeah,
the one
like
key?
you're just squeezing everything out of me today. The one,
The
the
one thing.
one
Well, I mean,
thing.
I can answer based off what I feel like you've said so far. It's just grinding.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that it's about not getting too high in the really moments where you are comfortable in the game and you play
Mm.
really well, because everything can change. It only takes 2 minutes or a set piece to change all that. So I think it's a grind. It really is a grind, and like yeah, for example, we're going to talk about this, the LA Galaxy. They I think this is a
Yeah,
good
this
transition
is
actually into the next segment that we want to talk about,
look at
where the
Julian.
LA Galaxy have now won, very comfortably against the Colorado Rapids. They're feeling great, I'm sure, but they also have 13 days off, as Ricky Puig uh, very much, put to Twitter and everything. And you can talk about that in a second. But, they're not playing again until November 23rd, which is a really, really long time. And to have that kind of really, really good feeling can sometimes also cause you to be like, we're really good right now. But then all of a sudden you play against a different opponent in a one-off game now, and that can really, lead to you being in trouble. And um, that certainly can happen. I wouldn't, kind of, yeah, take that out of it. So, but we'll see how the Galaxy respond. But I think grinding through it and really being, I think, 100% of the time, 100% there, understanding different moments of the game. That's probably, yeah, number one, too. Number two.
No, I was just gonna say that it doesn't really feel like they have to grind because combined with the international break for LA Galaxy at least, 22 days between matches, like
Yeah. Oh,
between
yeah.
the
Sorry,
sched.
I mentioned it.
No,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I think it's like 13 days and then the international breaks on top of it, and so
Okay.
they just don't play for. I mean, there's no way that doesn't mess you up, especially when you're in this grinding mindset, which they almost didn't even have to get into because everything went their way against Colorado. The tweet that you mentioned, by the way, just so I read it so you guys know what we're referencing. Ricky Puig, LA Galaxy superstar, said, insane, 22 days for the next playoff game. Come on. And then tags MLS, which love the audacity on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time. It's the biggest break of the season that you get. And that's insane to have happened right in the playoffs. That's obviously part of the format, of the playoff format, and this weird international break that kind of falls in between the playoffs. And I'm sure MLS will kind of, address that at some point. But yeah, it's hard to kind of, how do you approach that? Do you, train for a week, then maybe schedule a friendly against a lesser opponent, or just in a squad, kind of a 90-minute game or 60 minutes or whatever it is, to kind of keep a rhythm somewhat. And then some guys might leave for international duty. There's a lot of different things happening during that window. So, but at the same time, I would have taken it because that meant that we would have gone to the next round already, and we don't have to worry about this game now coming up.
And it's not the only scheduling drama that's come out of MLS either, because according to The Athletic, MLS, and we'd heard rumors about this, but now I can say according to somebody, which is a nice improvement. But according to The Athletic, MLS is considering a switch to a European style calendar. So not only, that would solve the whole international break in the playoffs situation if they did pull that switch off. But what do you think of that kind of change? I'm hesitant for it, but I'm curious to know if I'm hesitant for it is the same reason, like for the same reason you might be. Or would you like it?
I think I would like it. Yeah, I think I would like it. Obviously, you have to figure out Leagues Cup, and the biggest thing is the climate, right? Like those are the biggest things, and for especially cold weather climates to be playing through the cold months. Like you talk about the Canada teams, the teams, talk about Salt Lake, Minnesota, Chicago, like those are going to be cold games that you have to play in some cold winter months. But I think there's still a way around that potentially, where you can put the Leagues Cup during kind of January, February maybe, and play it in a warmer climate setting, maybe Mexico even. Um, so I think I like it just because of, I think you are becoming a league of choice for young, promising players that want to go over to Europe and go to the top 3, 5 leagues in the world. In order to adjust to that type of their type of transfer windows there, I think that's why you kind of have to do it, and you should try it. And ultimately, would align better with international breaks, maybe get the playoffs out of kind of now this busy window of college football, NFL, NBA start,
Sure, yeah.
MLB playoffs. Um, so you would potentially move the playoffs to a more, friendlier, I guess, a friendlier window within American sports. So you don't have to compete with as much. So maybe your viewers go up a little bit. But again, there's different positives and negatives to it. Why are you hesitant?
Well, that's a good. I mean, that's something I didn't think of, and that's a good job by you to think like a league executive, saying, "How can we get more eyeballs?" Well, if you're going at the same time as NFL, college football, the start of hockey, the start of basketball. Like, there's a
Yeah.
million things going on in the U.S. right now. But if you fast forward to, let's say, May, then you
Yeah.
run into NHL and NBA playoffs, but it's not as crowded. Right, there is an opportunity to get more eyeballs. My hesitancy was something you touched on. So you did kind of think of it. If you're in favor of a European style schedule, do you want to go play in Colorado in January? Like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically because the leagues that run into this issue in Europe, right? Because England, it gets cold, but it only gets so cold because I don't really understand all the science of it, but it's on the Gulf Stream or whatever. And so there's, kind of warmth in the water and it can't get too cold. It just gets rainy and like
Yeah.
0 Celsius or whatever. Minnesota can get -20,
Yeah.
-30. Colorado and Salt Lake City can get feet of snow. And the leagues
Yeah.
that have that sort of issue in Europe, which would be the Swedens, the Norways, the Icelands, the Finlands, those sorts of leagues, they play summer schedules the same way that MLS does. I think that you came up with, again, in a very league representative way, a great way to try to go around that, which would be, hey, let's play the Leagues Cup in Texas in, January and February. And yeah, it could get a little cold, but nobody's going to be getting frostbite like that poor Honduras keeper that went up to play in Minnesota in January.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not gonna run into that sort of situation. So I am now more convinced that it is possible for it to happen, and it would align better with literally everything, right? Just because MLS growing as a league, you'd want it to align that way. But it is going to take some working, because if they just switch straight to it, you will end up with some hilariously cold,
Yeah, you
snowy
can't do that.
games.
I think that would be impossible. Yeah,
Yeah. But
for
yeah,
sure.
this podcast, you specifically might have just come up with a way to get around that. We have found a use for the Leagues Cup as the mid-season tournament to get MLS through.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I've just heard it like through
Uh,
other sources that might be on the table and that's like contemplated about. So
all right.
I wish it was me.
Well, hey, you're blasting the idea. The idea is yours as long as you say it louder the
Yeah,
second time you hear
true.
it. No,
But
that's interesting. And then the other part of it is, how do you make the switch? Right? Because you currently have a season going. So at a certain point, you're going to have to shift the calendar and then basically play for a whole year
yeah, I mean, there's
once.
two options. You could either finish, let's say you finish next year, and then you kind of squeeze in kind of half a year or some stupid tournament before the World Cup. And then you play the World Cup in the US, and then after the World Cup is done, that's when you start your new MLS season, and that's when you adopt that schedule. I think that's what the talk is about changing to it after that World Cup is happening.
Huh.
So we'll see.
No, I mean, again, you're spot on with a solution that I hadn't necessarily thought of, which is you
Like
could
if
play
you were to play the Leagues Cup in January, you can still do that. Just move it like that 1 year, move it from February to
like March.
April.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Or you could do whatever they did with the COVID tournament,
yeah.
where they did just
MLS is
bring,
back. Yeah,
yeah, the MLS is back tournament or something, where you just get everybody together and everybody plays a few games and set up a tournament and just call it you could award the MLS Cup at the end of it if you wanted.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, it'd just be some sort of truncated. And then you'd have fan bases able to argue over whether it was a legitimate MLS Cup or not, and all of that stuff's always a good time. But it would work, and then you would have the hype of the World Cup to then launch you into
a new year,
the new season. It's perfect.
I
If
feel
only
like- I
you know.
feel
If
like
only
if we keep talking, maybe we will actually be able to implement this. Like
Yeah, I
we
was
just
gonna
need to
say,
another hour, and then we'll be
shame.
there. you know?
Perfect. It's a shame we're not like kings of the world here. We can't just, yeah. This is a great idea. You guys go do it. You've got this. But it's time, Julian, for us to take our trip around the world. Yay, go us. Because there is a world of football outside of MLS and me running marathons. And the one thing we have selected to talk about today, and you might have picked up on this already because I mentioned Turkey earlier in the podcast, is Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho is somebody I've talked about on my second YouTube channel a lot recently because he's coaching Fenerbahce in Turkey. He has just been suspended for 3 matches for accusing the Turkish league of rigging matches against his team. There is a caveat to this that I think makes him elite. And it reminds me of the Michael Jordan quote from his documentary where he's sitting there and he's holding the baseball bat. I don't know if you remember this clip. And he's talking about, if you can talk shit when it's even score or when you're losing, then that's like the real measure of a man. Jose Mourinho got suspended for 3 games for saying matches were rigged against him in a match that his team won.
Yeah.
They won, they won the game, and he still was so mad about, the other team had gotten 2 penalties and they had ended up winning 3-2 anyways on a last second goal. And he just came in and got suspended anyways. What do you think of a coach going out that aggressively against the league? And how could you not love Mourinho?
Yeah, first of all, I think that's the biggest thing. I absolutely love him and how he approaches that, right? He's not shy to speak up and not really go out of his way because it's just kind of him, and that's what makes it so authentic. And that's why I feel like as a player, you absolutely love playing for him because he is so realistic or true to whatever everybody else is almost thinking it, and he's just saying it, and that's really cool for him to do it. But hey, I don't know. He had that feeling that the Turkish league is like that, and like I said, I feel like I have that feeling too. I don't necessarily tune into the Turkish league a lot, to be honest with you, but he lives it every day, so I'm sure he has somewhat of an idea of what's going on.
I'll tell you, it was a bad call. The one thing it was a handball, one of those sorts of, how did they miss this on the VAR type handballs? But the team he's managing, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the football gods just give us a treat we don't even deserve. Because the team he's managing, before he even got there, held a vote with all of their members. Fenerbahce did. About whether they should leave the Turkish league system because they felt they were being treated so unfairly. And then you insert Jose Mourinho into that, you're just bound to get nonsense. It was the first time I'd ever heard of anything like that. So there's clearly a lot of drama going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening, I think, in Turkey over there. And even honestly, when I was in Germany, I didn't really watch any of those games. Like you always hear how crazy the derbies are because there's like 3 teams in one city in Istanbul, and it's like obviously nuts of how the fans are and how they treat the players sometimes, and that kind of gets through. And honestly, when DeAndre Yedlin was here, I spoke with him a little bit about his time in Turkey, and he was like, it's incredible what these clubs do. I think he was still owed money last year from them, and
Really?
so like things like that where clubs don't pay on time, and different things that aren't being done, I think, the right way. And Jose Mourinho just tells it how it is.
He's just in there. No, it's just the Wild West. Turkey is the Wild West, but there's a ton of money and a ton of talented players. Like, for example, Aiden Dzeko scored a goal for Jose Mourinho's team in that match, right? So there's these big names all over the place. And but the match that they were playing in, just because you brought up so much insanity happening, I just have to fit this story in. You mentioned crazy things going on, but the team they were playing against, Trabzonspor, the last time these 2 teams played in the league, the Trabzonspor fans, you might have seen this, rushed the field and like tried to attack the Fenerbahce players. And there is a video of one of the fans running like he's in the Olympics for the javelin with the corner flag, trying to like skewer one of the players. Would you ever play in a situation like that? Is that like interesting to you, or you just go, man, that's a little
No,
crazy?
it's too much. That's too much. That's, to me, that isn't isn't what the game is meant for. To have that type of feeling
That makes
towards other
sense.
people, that's not what it's there for. I condemn any sort of violence around the game and stuff. I think it's there to bring joy. You can be disappointed when you lost, and you can, be furious at your own players, but it should never lead to, um, you know, uh, I don't know, somebody trying to, or even like you even hear sometimes, like in Germany, I even hear sometimes fans camping outside of the training grounds when the team loses or gets relegated or things like that. And like I've literally heard guys tell me that they had to sleep over in their locker room because there were fans outside waiting to like punch them and to basically hurt them. So they slept in the locker room until they left. And like it's those things that should not be part of this game. It's, yes, soccer is very important. It's a very important aspect of my life and obviously a lot of people's lives. But if that is what it gets to, then something bigger is the issue, I think.
I think a lot of people use soccer as an excuse to be insane and
Yes.
kind of violent. Some people that might be looking for an excuse to do that sort of stuff, and I think that kind of group psychotic break can happen every once in a while. And clearly, in Turkey, that has happened more and more. To the Turkish league's credit, at least it seems on the outside, they have been fining all of these clubs a ton of money and suspending a ton of fans from stadiums, and also fining and suspending Jose Mourinho for saying that the league is rigged. And so all of that stuff is working hand in hand. But it's time to get to the questions you guys asked us. We have a couple today, and we also have, of course, the giveaway that we're going to get to at the end. The first question is from Chip Hamblin, at Chip Hamblin. It says, I have a question about goal celebrations. I have watched other MLS teams with very dramatic and over-the-top celebrations. Miami seems to be very subdued and subtle when they score. Is this something that comes down from the top players, or is it part of the inner Miami culture?
I think it more so comes down to the player who scores and what they want to do. And I mean, it also depends on the moment a little bit, right? I'm sure like you could see if you compare celebrations, for example, of Leo Messi scoring a goal in a regular season game, um, just let's say game, I don't know, 9, 8, 7, whatever. He scores a goal, he celebrates, not so empathetically or not so enthusiastically, and then you compare that to his goal celebration in Columbus when he scored the free kick or when he scored that first goal. There's a difference. There's a big difference, and you could sense that, and you could feel that, you could see it. So it also depends on the moment, of kind of what that goal means. I'm sure that from here on out, if we score goals, there'll be a little bit more, unless they're like 4 or 5 nil ones, then maybe the game is over by then. But at the same time, I think these goal celebrations will be a little bit more celebrated than the ones in the past.
Especially in a do or die game like this. But what I'm hearing
Yeah,
is you guys are just a bunch of chill dudes.
I
That's
just
what
used to scoring a lot. I think
yeah,
that's what it comes
hey,
down to. You celebrate a lot, you know.
hey, you love that.
What was your celebration running across the line at the marathon?
Oh, I actually I was pretty moved. I kind of forgot about that. Definitely didn't mention it in the initial, like the first time I ran the marathon, I didn't feel like I actually accomplished it because I
Yeah,
cramped and I stopped and I basically did yoga on the side of the road to like get my cramp out. This one I did what I thought was impossible for myself. I started running at the beginning, ran for 26.2 miles, crossed the line. So I kind of teared up a little bit. Like I wasn't like bawling, but like
yeah,
I gave it there's a picture. I gave it like I took my hat and sunglasses off and like kind of held them up and gave it like a really big fist bump, and it was kind of just this release of 2 years of trying to get to that
yeah.
point.
That's
But no,
cool. That's awesome.
I'm a huge celebrator in sports in general. I
Okay.
scored a winning penalty kick before, and I don't even know what the inspiration for this was, but it's one of my like peak athletic memories. I scored the winning penalty kick and I took a peace sign and I put it on my tongue and then put it towards the other team. I have no idea why I did that, but I was like running, like I scored and I was running back towards my team and I just went and just did
Wow.
that. And it was just a stroke of genius in the moment. And I didn't get to score a lot. Obviously I had the goalkeeping gloves in the back pocket when I was doing that. So that was, yes. Thank you for letting me relive that moment. You can borrow that celebration, if you want. At Michelle T21 says, why don't we ever see trick plays for set pieces? Is it disrespectful to opposing teams? I feel like that second part actually factors into it a lot more than people would like to admit too. Like you don't want to, or you don't want to get caught with your pants down trying to do a trick set piece. And then
I wish Michelle was here because I don't really know what trick plays trick plays. What does that mean?
I think it's like, in lacrosse, you have like the hidden ball trick, right? Where you pretend to hand the ball to another person and then go away.
Yeah.
In football, you have like fake punts and fake field goals. In soccer, you'd have like you fake an argument over the free kick and then somebody takes it. Like that's sort of smoke and mirrors. That's sort of misdirection. If I'm coming at this as a manager or a pundit, right, which is the angle that I am allegedly here to provide on this podcast, I would say that if you are the favorite, you typically aren't going to try to do that.
Yeah.
That's what in Inter Miami being the Supporters Shield winner, then maybe that's why you got, because if you have a free kick, just let Messi take it. Like what, you don't, you don't need to do like some crazy thing.
Yeah. We do have like plays drawn up, basically usually 2 or 3 plays from each side of a corner. And then sometimes one from like side free kicks as well.
Right.
This year we tried to do like a little bit more trick plays at times, but now it's more about like, for me, honestly, the hardest thing to defend is a really good delivery and a really well timed run, into those areas where if you have 2 or 3 guys attacking one, I don't know if it's a near post, for example, and you have a guy setting a really good block and a good delivery, like, we have guys that can deliver the ball quite well and that guys that can block quite well and
Julian. Okay.
and score quite well of those corners as well, where like that should give you an open header, maybe 8-10 yards out. And that, is a pretty good scoring opportunity. In the meantime, when you have trick plays or set plays, it's like, well, everybody kind of has to be on the same page. Everything has to kind of align perfectly where you fake them out perfectly. They do exactly what you think they're going to do. They kind of react to the things you're trying to trap them in or whatever. Like there's more unvariables or variables, I guess, in it that you have to kind of take into account, and that's maybe why there's not as many. So I don't know, but I've seen some really, really good ones on social media at times, and
there was what's Ted Lasso? They did the ring around the rosy, right? Where there's something ran like American football plays to score goals or something. I don't. What's the best one?
I don't think that's going to happen for us. Yeah.
No, it would be. Yeah, you imagine if it was Julian, Luis Suarez, and Lionel Messi at a ring around the rosy over the ball. Yeah, that's no, but what you said you'd seen a lot. What's the best one you've seen that you'd be like, wow, I'd love to maybe try that trick play someday?
Best one I've seen. That's hard to say. I like if you don't have a free kick taker that is like a Leo Messi and free kicks and stuff. I like the little, remember the one that they scored? I think the Netherlands scored was it in the World Cup?
Yeah, this was against Argentina. I think it was against Messi, where
exactly
short pass to the right.
Yes, like in a shooting position where everybody thinks you're going to shoot, but the guy is like just off the side of the wall, and he passes it to him, and like those types of plays, I like. I think I like, but maybe we'll come up with one for the next game or a few games or next.
I'll tell you, I saw one that I actually really loved this weekend. It was James Maddison for Tottenham in the Prem. It happened this weekend. And as a goalkeeper, I thought it was genius because what he did was he timed when the referee was going to blow his whistle. He kicked the ball right as the referee blew the whistle, right?
That's
and
cool.
so nobody's really, because normally you hear the whistle and then everybody goes, and then you're all there. But he stood right next to the ball. It was one of those 18, 19-yard free kicks. He's just kind of looking around. The moment he hears the whistle, he just shoots it.
Yeah,
And the keeper didn't even dive. And it was Emi Martinez, the guy that won best goalkeeper in the world. And he didn't even, it just caught everybody by surprise. It was really cool. And I was like, I don't know why I have never seen that before. Somebody just, acting like they're not paying attention. And then the moment the whistle hits, they just whistle it into the back of the net. Gives you a bigger margin for error.
It does. Yeah, it's cool. That's a good one. Might have to take that into account.
It's just like it's a curveball. Doesn't let the goalkeeper get set. It's perfect. No more curveballs, though, because we've been teasing this for a couple of weeks. It is time to announce the winner of this ball that's been in the background of the whole podcast. A Leagues Cup signed ball by the entire Inter Miami team. Yes, including that man, Julian Gressel. The entire team from the Leagues Cup. And the winner that we have selected, get your own drum roll. Oh, my downstairs neighbor's very confused. Okay. Charity New 4112 at Charity New 4112. And how could we choose anyone else? It's actually Charity New's son, because their message said, my 13-year-old autistic son loves listening to this podcast. He used to always listen to I knew I was going to go for it. I knew I was going to mess it up. The soccer podcast. He was excited to know Gressel's involved in another podcast. And that was a story that kind of touched all of us. And so Charity New 4112. We're glad that your son enjoys listening to this podcast, even though I'm, interrupting the Gressel airwaves from time to time. And you have won the Leagues Cup signed ball from the entire Inter Miami team. So be sure to get in touch with us so that we know how to get that to you. But congratulations. An awesome piece of memorabilia.
Congrats. Yes. And we will do more giveaways, people. So whoever didn't get this, please stay tuned. Don't be disappointed. There will be more for you to win.
We like the community that's popped up around this and the YouTube comments, the replies on Instagram and everything. And we, as Julian said, we want to give you more stuff. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Hit us up with your questions on YouTube and on Instagram for next week. But that's it for this week's show. Episode 30. We're getting old. Thanks for watching. Bye.
See ya.